Hello, friends, and welcome back. This week we'll be discussing the film Enter the Void. And pardon my voice, I'm fighting a cold all week, but we'll get there. So I'm here with Chris. Chris, thanks for joining me on this one.
Thanks is probably in inverted commas something of that nature, because I both had to watch Enter the Void and go through that experience, and also really enjoy Enter the Void again, which for some people it is definitely not a film to recommend starting watching cinema with. I think that's for very, very sure, but has one of the more fascinating approaches to filmmaking that I think you'll see.
Yeah, it's very different. It's not when someone asks you what is it about, it's hard to explain.
Yeah,
what it's about. It's about so many different things. We talked about where to start. I guess I don't really know where to start, but it's going to be an interesting discussion. But I think just how different it is part of its appeal.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think Gaspar Noé falls into that genre of provocateur filmmaker. Somebody who is, I would say, you can put other people in there, like Cronenberg's one, Lynch's one. I'd say Julia Ducournau's one recently as well. Even some like Jennifer Kent in a lesser way could be considered the same, where they put stuff on the screen in such a way that it's not so much about what it's about, but rather what it makes you think and what it makes you feel. And I think one of the reasons that I really love this genre of filmmaking is that it provokes multiple responses. It provokes multiple ways of feeling about things, even from viewing to viewing. One viewing can make you feel one way, another viewing can make you feel another way. And it is completely and totally appropriate if you go, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I either don't want to do this, or I'm not in the mood for this right now, or celebrating it in either way.
Yeah, it is something that you kind of have to be in the mood for to watch.
Yeah. Especially given its length. It'd be different if it was like if I think of something else that Gaspar Noé did, Lux Eterna, I think we were talking about very briefly a few days ago. It's 70 minutes long or something. And 70 minutes of that visual onslaught is one thing. But to then have a 2.5 or 2:34 as the full cut of this is something completely different, and especially because I think this film goes through waves of challenging in different ways and in different kind of themes and in different kind of modes of viewing the world and the life of Oscar and his sister,
Yeah. The camera, the cinematography and the way that the camera moves through walls, I'm not sure how they did it, but it's so cool. It's just...
It's phenomenal. Yeah. Like, it's one of those things that when we've just finished up, obviously, Oscar season, and you see certain films getting nominated for big categories like editing and cinematography, but for whatever you think about Enter the Void as a piece of visual storytelling, it is one of the most unbelievably edited and cinematography achievements I think that you'll ever see. The cutting between not just the walls, although that is phenomenal, because I was looking for a lot of the fade, the blacks, etc., that you can kind of go through it, but the cutting and the frame of viewpoint from, especially across timelines. So you go from one timeline of the elder Oscar to the younger Oscar to different places, and it's almost like it's seamless, and it syncs up with this. I don't know if you notice it's this toss, but especially in the start, the blinking that comes, that comes throughout the storytelling at the start. That's a very noticeable blink. That it helps your immersion to believe that it's first person, but it also kind of gives these opportunities for when things do slightly change and cut. It's not always a blink, but it could be a blink, and that blink of the eye can be enough just to give you that moment of just that. It cut there, but he just blinked. That was just it. And it's such a genius way of presenting this story, and presenting the multiple threads of their existence, if you know what I mean, in terms of the multiple forms of the void and all of that kind of stuff, which I'm sure we'll come to. Like the title being Enter the Void has multiple meanings throughout this entire this entire film.
Yeah. So I wonder how he was able to make this movie, because I can't imagine films like this being given money to do this, because it's very niche. I would imagine it's not for general audiences. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is quite well known to be Noah's passion project. And I think it was probably one of those things he was sort of pitching in the background for a long time. Had to have a hit of some sort for somebody to say, right, go ahead, go do this. As they often say in Hollywood, as soon as you have a hit, that's the time that you go and say, here, give me money for this thing. That after you have another film, people might go, no, I'm afraid not. That's not happening. There's plenty of good examples of that. The most recent one I can think of is Damien Chazelle for Babylon. I think Babylon is a film that he would never be allowed to make at any other stage except after La La Land. So, yes, he was given money to do it, but I think it's a lot less expensive. I'd be surprised if it was as expensive as it looks, because there is definitely a theme and a visual style created by the neon and the club and the Japanese kind of aesthetic that you have, that in terms of filmmaking, I think covers up an awful lot of the handheld cam, all of that kind of stuff that you have. And it's more the graphical or CGI elements of it that you kind of go, because there's a lot of it in this film.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of but it's also very... It's almost like, the old screensavers you used to have when your computer used to go to sleep. There's a lot of that. Like, it's a very high-tech version of that, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of more that imagery rather than like really great CGI until the very kind of last shot, he says in inverted commas.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of long scenes, drawn out scenes, and I was impressed with the kids, the younger versions,
Yes,
of the brother and sister of Oscar. There's some really just heart-wrenching scenes with them, and very intense, and you can tell when kids are young, when they're acting and they're told to cry, or I'm not sure how they direct them to elicit emotion like that, but it's convincing. Like, it seems real. Yeah.
Especially the scenes of the sister crying in the bed holding the things that they use that shot or that imagery again and again, because we often just see the back of Oscar's head throughout a lot of it, but definitely that female performance is very striking, and it's so... It obviously was captured so well that he thought, I can use this multiple times, because he uses it throughout the film again and again to kind of tie things together about where their hurt and their pain's coming from. You think in one way it's just the car crash and the losing of the parents, etc., is one form of pain, but then the separation of them is even more distraught. And again, they keep on using that again and again as we progress through the story of losing the child and the pregnancy and all of that kind of stuff. And it again, it's a movie that you can't help but feel throughout the whole thing. I mean, I think there is a fascination, with, you finish a film like this and you go, what was it about? You go straight on the Google and go, what does that mean? What does that mean? And rather than kind of analysing your own feelings about it and realising that all of those are valid, because that was the whole point, I think, of making the film, insofar to be repulsed, to cry, to be happy, to be sad, or whatever emotion that comes to mind for it.
Yeah. I think... Yeah, I don't... It... Yeah. I think the first time I watched it, it was more... the first time it was more about life and death and reincarnation and loss, and just we're all floating in, but I was surprised the second and third time I watched it how much sexual content there was.
Yes.
There's a lot. I guess it didn't strike me the first time, and the second and third time it really did. Do you think it was gratuitous?
So we talked about this before you did your rewatch, actually, on Friday, that we were trying to coax some other people into watching this and giving them some sort of content warnings. And I had just rewatched it, and I was the same. I was like, there is so much overt sexuality here, like in terms especially of how they shoot the women.
Yeah,
which is a bit silly given how the film ends up, and that it's a very very shocking end scene from a male perspective. But yes, the women present it as this kind of, like, part of it. I mean, she's a stripper, for instance. So, I mean, you sort of get a bypass there, but it's the intimacy of the sex, if you know what I mean. It's not tender. It is not loving. It is raw and kind of shot from weird angles and kind of weird bits of it. As always, sex, again, this might be just getting older or something. When you're younger, sex provides a different avenue for you. You're often excited by it. And as you get older and you maybe seen enough of it, you kind of go, was this necessary? And especially in the volume that we're talking about. And certainly the scene towards the end where they flash through the hotel, the Love Hotel. I think, okay, I get it there. I get the need for showing that, etc., that he wants to do. But it's the earlier scenes, both with Alex and with his sister. So there's I think there's a weird scene with Alex when Oscar walks in on Alex, and it's actually a quick cut and edit with a modern memory and one with his kids, you know, so it cuts between his mum and dad, which I think is fine. But then he walks in on Alex having sex with somebody, and I was like, oh, that influences my opinion of the character Alex, if you know what I mean, in some ways, because the first one was husband and wife, and this one wasn't, and it did colour my opinion of him for much of the film, even though he was supposedly a good guy at the end of it. Maybe that was the point, exactly. So you didn't really know what was, like, I don't know, who was a good partner for the sister or not. But then the scenes with the sister and the strip club owner or manager, they felt a little gratuitous. But again, I think they were gratuitous. I think that's what that relationship was. In a lot of ways, there was no real meaning or depth to it, and maybe that's exactly what it showed. I don't know. I'm big enough and old enough, I suppose, to kind of go, take it for what it is. But yeah, it is something as you get older, you kind of wonder if the amount of it was necessary.
Yeah, I think so. Alex, when Linda first gets there, Alex was kind of just like all over her, and it was very, and I think Linda even says something like, "Your friend is trying to fuck me" or something like. Yeah. And he was just like, it was uncomfortable the way that he was kind of, you know, coming onto her. And from that point, I thought, this guy seems kind of like a creep. Like, so I was surprised exactly that he ended up being the good guy at the end, or, you know,
the redemption,
safe guy. Yeah.
And it was almost as if that's what Oscar wanted or something, you know, that he wanted it away from the other guy and to be with Alex. But Alex didn't come across as a great catch. No. Like, it wasn't like he was in the background, you know, he was the shoulder to cry on, that kind of archetype character. But he just sort of then became that later on after the death. I don't know. It created a bit of confusion, I think, for me in terms of why this was necessarily a lot better for her. Because I think that is the point that it's trying to make, that she's in a better place in some ways. Personal relationships at the end rather than where she was. But yeah. And I think the sex scene sort of coloured that a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is with Alex, because he was outside the club when Oscar was killed, and he goes and hides out, and I wasn't sure quite why he was hiding. I guess he was afraid, so he was hiding out. Maybe that experience changed him. That's his kind of, maybe that is something that transformed his outlook, I guess. That's the only thing I think of.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is possible, because, I mean, at a certain point, having been a younger male, you kind of do that. I'm going to drink, and, you know, you're just going out to have fun, and maybe a serious implication of that or something kind of makes you reassess things and go, actually, all the drugs, whatever, isn't actually worth it. You know, I've lost a good friend here. He's been murdered, sold out by a friend. This isn't fun anymore. And to kind of look and see what kind of person you are and do that introspective thing, it's definitely possible.
And with Linda, Linda seems she seems like she's attracted to her brother. Or at least...
You reckon?
Yeah, just because I think she even asks him, are you jealous? And
yeah,
I think he probably was. But the way that I took that was that they're both seeking that family unit, and they weren't sure how to. That's all they have each other, but I wasn't sure.
But they are essentially trying to fill the void there. I mean, the parents that were left, we sort of get a glimpse that it was a happy, secure family unit before the parents were killed, and that essentially they sort of needed to be everything to each other. So in terms of like love, guidance, all of that kind of stuff, and to the point that it definitely creeps over the line. The bit where she starts licking and sucking his ear, it was maybe even more uncomfortable than all the other sexual stuff. But yes, I think there's one of your first applications of filling a void or talking about what the void was in terms of doing that, and even to the point that Oscar takes himself down a dark path to try and create the atmosphere so that he can bring her to Tokyo and create a family unit there for, and the two of them kind of living this kind of edgy life on the fringes of society so that they can stay together and coexist. Because when they're together, that scene at the start where they're together is sort of tend to the two of them looking out for each other, and, you do get a sense that they are a strong pair, you know what I mean, that they love each other in a familial way, never mind anything else,
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit ironic that Oscar to make enough money to bring her to him ends up in this seedy underbelly and starts selling drugs and associates with these people, and he hurts a lot of people around him. And he ultimately, that's what led to his death and to them being apart again, which I thought was ironic and sad at the same time.
Very, very much so. It was his own destruction, as well. As much as he's kind of doing it for money at the start and kind of staying separate, he ended up going down a hole himself, into the point that he couldn't escape his work, even when he wasn't working in some way. And it affected then his decision making, and his other relationships were probably a bit compromised because of that. And it is sad in a lot of ways that the sort of that tragedy just leads to more tragedy, as often does in life. The car crash. People don't get the solid footing to build proper platforms for life and sustaining relationships on top of it.
Yeah, it was sad, and I guess the lifestyle, he ends up with his friend's mom, with Victor's mom. Was it Victor? Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing was just. I think just this like free living kind of thing ends up, there's consequences to that.
Yeah, and I think it was especially shown that in its own right was fine, but it was when he started appearing in the house and obviously in a drug-induced sort of state and doing it overtly in front of the rest of the family. That's when this decision making was compromised, so far as Victor's scene then. The husband obviously probably knew more than he was letting on, etc., and didn't want to face it. But he was doing it in such a way that it wasn't just behind doors. It wasn't just a secret thing. It was doing it, and he couldn't separate being a good person or it's things that he was doing with the thing. The lines were becoming blurred for him, as often happens with when people start to fall down a drug hole.
Yeah.
That difference between his reality is sort of shown by those kind of CGI scenes of kind of the brains and the neurons and all of that kind of stuff that's shown again, is that he couldn't see one thing for the other one. And even the shots where we do see him, the one in the mirror at the start when he wakes up and looks in the mirror, I always think those things are so cleverly done, because obviously they're not just shooting into a mirror because then you'd see the camera. But again, use of blinking movement, water spilling on the shirt, etc. Also very clever, but again, it is sort of shot in a hazy style.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you got that blurring of, right, what is he seeing? What is he really feeling? Is he in a fit state to even walking outside at the moment? And obviously, combine that with the Tibetan Book of the Dead and all the reincarnation stuff that's kind of coming along, and you've sort of created this playground and this kind of set of ideas with which to run the rest of the film.
Yeah, so I wasn't familiar with the Tibetan Book of the Dead. but they mentioned it a few times. So from what I understand is it's a way for someone after death to live in this kind of, I forget the name of just like this intermediate state. So the soul can leave the body and find a rebirth, and there's different types of rebirth. So I'm guessing that's what this is. Oscar's soul kind of finding a rebirth, right? Kind of searching.
Yes. So floating about in the ether for a long time, into the void, if you want. And that he's not technically completely dead at that stage, that he's sort of waiting for an opportunity or waiting for a body or a host or whatever way to come back and be reborn in some way, which obviously leads through to the end of the film and what you want to make of that. But it does give it. I don't know how I feel about that section of the film, because there are a lot of things I really like about the film, but we see an awful lot of it from this kind of top-down view, if you know what I mean. And it's supposed to be Oscar kind of doing it the whole way through, and it gives him a way to stay connected with the story, for sure, that he doesn't go away. But I think it also compromises sort of some of the storytelling that we see. I don't know. It makes some of the things kind of a bit samey the whole way through, and it also gives opportunities for the spotting of holes that becomes and voids all the way through, whether that's sinks or gunshot wounds or whatever, where we continue to spill down and go through. But yeah, there's such a long time with him spent in that void state that's most of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long time. And so, since we're on the topic, is his rebirth his sister's? So is his rebirth opportunity Linda's child?
I watched this again, and it sort of looks like his rebirth opportunity is him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it flashes back to his
own birth. It looks like,
even during conception, if it switches between, it looks like his mom.
Yeah.
Who had been killed in the car accident, and his sister.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if they were playing with time there. Like it was kind of overlapping each other, and it was kind of happening, like a cycle was happening again.
Yeah.
Because his friend Alex mentions in the beginning that you're stuck in this life over and over again until you get it right, or until you
find your thing. But I think you're right. I think in terms of, like, it plays a lot of time throughout the entire movie of cutting back and forward between the different timelines. But I think the fact that at the end, it definitely does seem like his own birth is what he's visualizing at that stage, and whether that means he hasn't actually found the suitable body for rebirth in or otherwise. It maybe talks to the fact that he wanted to be the child that was inside Linda and Alex, which would, again, that weirdness of their relationship. But I mean, they did sort of set that up a little bit, insofar as, there was a jealousy, there was a longing for each other. Maybe that's where he was going, but it actually just came and blurred the lines again, and he just kind of was born again, so to speak, and in his own thing, not giving us a satisfactory outcome, which I don't think would have been fitting with the movie anyway. I think it's more about that question.
Yeah, so Linda and Oscar promised to never leave each other.
Yes.
They'll always be together. So that's why I thought he found a way to be with her. And maybe let's repeat this cycle. But, okay, so
it is possible. Like, there's no doubt that it definitely is one interpretation of the ending, because it would lead credence to what he wanted, but I don't think he got what he wanted because he wasn't in control of it, if you know what I mean. Not in control of that process, but that's just my reading of it.
Well, I kind of wondered, okay, because right after he's killed, he watches Linda and the club owner,
Yeah.
They're, they were doing their thing. Yeah. And he doesn't know yet what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But he doesn't take that opportunity, maybe because he knows that she won't birth the baby.
Well, it's also not a loving relationship. It's not a thing made of love in the same way that Alex and her hopefully do at the end, because that's sort of what Oscar wanted at the start. But also, he's just been murdered and maybe trying to see your life a little bit. That is but the idea. Like, I do wonder if, like, if you were ever in that situation, right? And you got to watch people that you love both deal with your own death, but actually see what type of person they are and how they come out of it, whether it might change your viewpoint of what's good for them and what's not good for them. I don't know. All that stuff's very introspective and soul-searching in a lot of ways. But yeah, he did have other opportunities for sure, because there's... Yeah. Like, he witnesses a lot of sex, and I think that's what going around the Love Hotel is about, is trying to see, right, what would I want to do, or who would I want to be? Well, how could I kind of put myself... I could take any of these opportunities.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, indeed, yeah.
So earlier in the film, when he's buying drugs, they're looking at the city, the neon city that... I forget the name of the friend who's there. But he talks about... they talk about the city, and just imagine if all of our friends were in this hotel having like a big orgy, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. So I think the line of reality got blurred there for me, because was this really happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question for sure. Well, it is that flying in through the window of the Love Hotel, as it says on the outside. I think more that's just a representation of a city, rather than necessarily being this one place,
like
where everybody
building.
just goes, straps on their neon lighting around their genitals, and goes, right, let's go. I must have been. I kept on looking at that, going, did they do that post, or did they do that in time? I don't know. They must have done it in post.
They must have. I don't know. Maybe not.
What a fun idea, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. I forgot where I was going with this. The neon genitals got me.
The neon genitals kind of catch. But it does go back to what do you think? Do you think that that representation? Because to me, it is. I mean, again, I can't stop thinking of puns here, but that's the climax of the film. Essentially, that scene where he flies through the hotel, because it does lead then to them finding Alex and his sister, and then him settling and going through there. So it is very much like the going through all the different tunnels and then coming out at the far end of the one that he wanted to come out in. What was your reading of that whole situation and what was trying to be told there?
So towards the end, when Alex and Linda are in the taxi or in the cab, they're driving, and I wasn't sure if it was a fatal accident, but they have an accident that mirrors her parents' accident. Yeah. So I wasn't sure if they were okay. So I think we can establish they weren't killed because they ended up having the baby, but I wasn't sure if that was them in some kind of intermediate state, or so maybe that was just them post accident, and maybe that brought them closer together, and they were that they weren't literally in this building, like you said. They were just they're in this love state, and they appear, they were visible through this love hotel, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I read it, but I wasn't sure if, because that they weren't killed, so
yes, they
continue, obviously.
But it is that sort of cycle again of the crash, and a rebirth from one thing to the other. In terms of like relationships and love, kind of burgeoning from a car crash of multiple sorts.
I guess another thing that kind of, it seems like tragedy brings people together.
Yeah.
When you share a tragic experience, you kind of bond with people who you experience it with. I think that's probably true with Linda and Oscar, with Linda and Alex. I'm sure there's a couple other people, but it's kind of, it brought them all closer together.
Yeah, not only the tragedy. I think it's the heightened emotional state. I think it's sort of how sex works in a lot of ways as well, in terms of creating the bond between people. People experience very high emotional states together, and you kind of always have a connection to somebody because at your best / worst, they have seen you kind of, whether clothes or not, but that kind of naked emotion and the core of your soul kind of binds people together in some ways, that you have something tangible together rather than just a conversation or whatever else that's very pithy on the outside. So yeah, those kind of, again, especially for Linda, having seen her parents go through a car crash and not come out, to walk out of that with somebody, and especially as a sort of cathartic thing, and to say, right, this is the start of a new relationship or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of, so with the sexual content, I wonder if it was to make you uncomfortable. Because we talked about, I think it was when we recorded a few days ago, and we talked about the blinking and to kind of wake you up and to get your attention. I kind of wonder if part of that was to in one way desensitize you, and another way to make you uncomfortable, because I do get this message from the film that all those things are something that it's part of the human experience. Like everyone experiences it. It's not something to be ashamed of, or to be, to kind of just embrace the whole life. It's part of life.
Yeah, very much so, and especially when you consider that he kind of goes behind the closed doors, because a lot of it, there's not really any of it that happens overtly out in the open. So it's all kind of behind the closed doors, whether seedy or otherwise. But to say that it does happen, everybody does it kind of in a private space, and that realistically, like, I don't know about you, but even the relationship with the manager or the owner of the strip club, never felt that, didn't feel wrong to me in a lot of ways, because two consenting adults, she knew what she was doing. I don't really think she was getting anything out of it other than, pleasure. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was going to change her standing within the club or otherwise. And, while it was sort of like there was a lot of it, and sometimes it was like, geez, I need to see as much of this, and especially in as graphic detail as it did. I was really surprised by how graphic it got at some points. I was like, right, okay, sure. And I have to say, in some ways, it makes it hard to ever recommend this film to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I could say, like, if my kids, even when they're 18, 19, 20, and they're going, I like being shocked, give me a shocking movie, right? They're always going to remember that I recommended Enter the Void to them. I don't want to be the person, I think it's a really great film. I think it should be watched, but the fact that I recommended it to them would be a bit strange. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the Catholic guilt on me, I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, Catholic guilt is a real thing, I can tell you.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real thing. It's hard because our friend Susanna gave it a shot and she wasn't able to make it, which, I get it. Like, it's not for everyone. Definitely not for everyone. It's not something, I think I think, like you said, you have to be in the right headspace for it. You have to be kind of open to it, and you have to just kind of sit back and go for the ride. And if you're not in the right headspace, you may like it when you are in a different headspace, but it's definitely not for everyone. And when we recommended it, we asked Varsha, our friend Varsha, she was going to watch it. I went during my rewatch. I thought, I hope she doesn't watch it.
No, she doesn't watch it. I also think it's the kind of movie you have to build up to in terms of like that genre. I think you probably should have watched a couple of Cronenberg films, even something like The Fly, which is probably one of the more popular Cronenberg films in terms of like Hollywood people that have watched it. That uncomfortable feeling that you get through the transformation scene. Take that, watch like provocateur cinema making of a few bits before you get to the End of the Void. I think End of the Void, and especially No Way as a filmmaker, because I'm going to talk probably about Irreversible in a week or so, is another one. Like, he is as extreme as it gets in a lot of ways, in terms of the themes that he's playing with and the things that he wants to show you and the things that he wants to make you feel. He's at the very top end of the scale, and even for people that like a lot of like that kind of genre cinema, don't like No Way. They just think he's pretentious with it. I think that's sort of valid as well, because I think it's a very fine line at the top end of any kind of art, where you kind of go from, is this, well, like you said at the start, was the amount of sex justified? And it, like, what was it not? For those that think it is justified, was it because you just kind of desensitize yourself to it at a certain stage and kind of went, well, it is what it is, or whether you were getting something else out of it? So I think, I don't know how somebody jumps into that very severe end of genre of cinema without having to sort of lean up to it through probably starting with a bit of horror, moving your way through and then on through it, because I do think some of the most interesting cinema, especially modern times, is this kind of, right, here we go, even Brandon Cronenberg's stuff, the past couple of films like Possessor and Infinity Pools definitely sort of stray into this as well, of being like, let's make people feel uncomfortable with body horror or whatever else it is going on, and see what they feel and see what it engenders in people and what kind of conversations it starts.
Yeah, I think it's curious. It's interesting because I watched Into the Void first, and then I watched Irreversible after, right. And I definitely saw it kind of gave me the impression that he was building up to things he was playing with in Irreversible, and then he just went all in and Into the Void. Just a lot of the camera work and angles and things like that. I think he was kind of toying around with it, and then he just went all in and Into the Void. But it's a different type of film too, because you do have the floating and this intermediate state thing where he's roaming the planet, he's roaming around. Yeah. But that's interesting. I don't think I kind of worry a little bit because cinema is becoming really safe. I think there's a lot of the films now are very, and not to criticize or I just feel like a lot of the like superhero films, which are kind of dying off slowly now. Yeah. But they're all very safe. They don't really take chances. They're very formulaic, and people enjoy them. That's fine. But it kind of makes me worry that when that's all we have, then unless you step out and unless you seek these types, or even a Cronenberg movie, even The Fly, something like that. Yeah. Not even as extreme as this one, but just to kind of dip your toes into something else that takes chances, that does things differently. I worry a little bit that too many people will get used to the formula and just want that over and over again.
I mean, that was definitely me in my 20s. I kind of stepped out of film watching for a long time because I didn't see outside the Hollywood bubble, if you know what I mean. And it felt like as soon as you got halfway through a film, you knew where it was going to end up. There was kind of no point watching the end. And part of that was by design. Obviously, the Hes Code, etc., from the 30s actually made it so that you had to have a happy ending, that the bad guy couldn't get away with it. And even though that changed much, much later, the remnants of that are still alive today, is that people want kind of good endings for characters that they like, etc., and not to step outside of that. And the one thing I'll say about it is that these films still exist. The films, whether they're getting made in large numbers today or not, these films stand the test of time and will always be available. And I often have this joke when I'm speaking. I've probably told it before on this podcast, when people say, what's your hobby? What do you like to do in your spare time? And you go, I love watching movies. And they get really excited and they say to you, oh, did you see the new Matt Damon film, in the cinema? I thought it was really great. And you go, not that movie, not those movies, and people think it's sort of snobbish, and maybe it does come across as snobbish, but I've done and enjoyed a lot of those movies, like loads of them. And when you sit down, like, especially in a visual medium, you want to be challenged in some way a lot of the time. Not every time. Not right. But especially those solitary watching experiences. I imagine you watch this by yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you can have an enjoyable solitary watching experience with certain films. It's not like watching a superhero movie in a crowd is fun.
Yeah.
Watching solitary, I don't think it's the same way. Whereas I couldn't watch this in a crowd. I would have had to show kind of some reaction. So the solitary kind of things, and I think the fact that we have a couple of filmmakers that do this, there are a couple of live and practicing today now, Julia Ducournau is the one that did Raw and Titan. I think both of those films are exceptionally good, in much the same challenging way. And she's only starting her journey in terms of creating films. It's funny, the French. It's the French. Why the French? I mean, they had the whole French extremity kind of stage that they pumped a lot of them out, but it's still the French.
Martyrs.
The Martyrs, again, French.
Yeah.
But those kind of these kind of swathes of people that kind of say, well, if you're doing it, I'm going to do it. I really enjoy that. I want to do more of that. And it's funny because very few of them are mimicking each other, but they're kind of using the same language of, right, I'm going to try and shock you. And the more they get shocked, the harder it is to shock you.
Yeah.
So actually to be able to pull it off on a modern society or modern film is tough. And they also have to do it a lot of time with no money. Yeah. Because who the hell is funding a cannibal movie? You know, who's funding, you know, this weird kind of trippy drug sex movie? You know, it's always been the underground or the background. So like I'm always very hopeful because I always say modern films, people are very lucky because they get everything.
Yeah.
You go back 50, 60 years, there wasn't as much choice as there is now. And, you know, even people sitting in their bedrooms making films are pushing the envelope a little bit, so we get a bit of everything, and there's plenty of films to watch for everybody. Mm-hmm. Plus the back catalogue of all this stuff.
Yeah. I just think, I was thinking back to the amount of sexual content in this movie, and okay, let's say that it was either really toned down, so that if the scenes were just flashes instead of these longer scenes that were a little bit more gratuitous, I don't think it would have the same impact. It wouldn't have the same weight if it was cut in a way to minimize that content. It just wouldn't be the same film.
And it wouldn't be able to make the point that it's making about love and about sex and all of those things. Plus, it's quite a long film. I mean, it couldn't have... Its down periods are the bits where he's floating about, you know, and it's spinning in the voids, etc. It needs those bits to bring you back together, to make you think. It never lets the tension drop too much in the movie, to the point where you're like, oh, I'll go make a cup of tea and leave this running in the background. It's not that movie. It's right, I have to make a cup of tea, I'm going to pause it, go make a cup of tea and come back, whereas some other movies you just kind of, I'll let it run in the background, because it is always begging for your attention. In some way. And I definitely agree. Like it is that kind of heightened, the way that it shows, because it shows you in various ways, and it keeps on stretching the envelope just a little bit, to the point that it starts off with, you know, that top down view, and okay, there's boobs and stuff, and that's right, okay, that's great, but then it gets more overt. In the next scene, it gets more overt. The next scene, it actually ends up with, right, and we're going to put neon flashing on this because that's what we do. And then at the very end, we get the, right, you think that's as far as we can push it? Let's really go inside the gym here.
That was... I remember the first time I watched, I had to kind of like, wait, what? What is that? No way. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But
it is that same thing. Your first thought is there's no need. I mean, there's absolutely no need. But again, when you rewatch it, you kind of go, but then it wouldn't have the impact.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have the impact because you're sort of repulsed by it in some ways, but also it leads to his rebirth, if you know what I mean. So you're kind of coming, it's that wave of emotions that you're being taken on, in terms of, oh God, what is happening here? And then baby born, people smiling, you know, baby's first feed, all that kind of stuff. And you're like, what are films doing to me? This is,
yeah. I think the only time when I think they went a little bit, I think it could have been toned down is in the last 15 minutes. I think that it could have just given us, you know, an idea, because I think we could fill in the blanks by that point. But I think it does go a little bit. I get but it was just like, okay, we get it. Like, we know what else.
Well, I think on a rewatch, you could watch it at 1.25 or 1.5 speed. You know what I mean? You get, okay, right, I know what's happening. And then slow again for the very, very final scene. Yeah, because I think now that shit's really funny. Yeah. I think I kind of go like, I like that he went there because it creates this phenomenal end climax to the film, and it means that every Letterboxd review just is referencing that one scene. You know, for all of the other 2 hours 30 that you watch and go through the really deep thematic stuff, all anybody wants to talk about is that scene on the first watch.
That's kind of sad, because that's for in the moment. I mean, it catches your attention because obviously, you know, of course, but coming away from it, I really didn't think about it too much. I mean, that wasn't really what I walked away with.
Yeah. It is. It's funny because it's for all of the other scenes that, I mean, some people will find erotic, some people will not. That one definitely isn't. You know, it's for us, and maybe that is part of the point. Like, if you want to get up close and, you know, whatever, you know, feel yourself excited about this, let's go here and see if you feel the same way, because you're probably not. You know, it's not on that level. It's not exciting. It's biology at that point. You know.
Yeah. So one of the things that made me, that was weird, was when Alex was talking about the connection with his mom and where he felt most comfortable. I think there's a lot of themes here about motherhood and the love that mothers have for their kids and kids feel for their mothers. And you know, I think even Oscar asks his mom, "Do you love me like you love Dad?" And she's, "Well, I love you both, but it's different."
Yeah.
And there's some Freudian stuff
going
on there,
stuff.
and
there's also the scenes where they talk about why you find other people attractive, you know, and that kind of stuff. When you're looking at somebody else, what is it about that person that will be for one person and not for another person? But yeah, I really like the fact that the parents were actually put into the story then in a lot of ways, because it did show that they had, I think I said this before, this strong family unit. It was a very normal family. For as abnormal as the circumstances and everything else in Tokyo would become, they came from a stable environment that is traditionally the 2.4 children, kind of mother, father, brother, sister, you know, they go swimming together, they, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And in that context, the love and relationship seems normal. And then taken away from that with the tragedy, etc., in the end, those lines get blurred again. Those lines get kind of torn apart, and you kind of go, oh, is love the same then? Because you're dealing with tragedy and trauma, etc., in ways that no people should ever have to experience.
Yeah. I was a little bit confused with why I'm assuming the grandparents took Oscar and Linda after their parents were killed, and they told them, "We'll always take care." You know, she asks them, "What happens when you die?" And she said, "We'll take care of you. You'll be taken care of." But then they come and they take her away.
Yeah, I assumed that
the
grandparents. I thought the grandparents died at that stage, and like it's one of those things you tell kids, and yet you don't prepare for that eventuality. You know what I mean? Nobody wants two kids. I mean, that's just true. Even when people are babysitting for night, you have one kid, everybody's like, "I'll take them for night," and you go, "Great, great, great." As soon as you have two, they're like, "No, we're not doing it." So stretch that out into a long-term commitment once the grandparents are dead, and because the grandparents shown to be quite sick and elderly, you know, having got the thing. So I think that's, I mean, I could be reading too much into it, but that's certainly what I got out of it, is that actually come the point, yeah, don't worry about that. As the thing that you tell kids in terms of like, it'll be fine, we're adults, we're just going to sort it. Then they die, and nobody actually did any planning for these kids.
Yeah, I would have thought they would have tried to keep them together, to make arrangements to have someone who could take them both and not separate them. And
absolutely.
I mean, they've already been through enough, but geez,
for sure.
I don't know who young Linda was, but the scene post car accident when she's in the back seat at the end, I mean,
terrific. Yeah. I think it's worth saying, like the cast of this, there's nobody famous in it. Well, there's one famous person in it, but they were famous after the fact. So Victor is quite famous in the UK now. In the Band Years and Years, and Ollie Alexander's quite a well-known actor now. Has done some amazing work. So he is, but that was Oscar's first film. He only ever made another two because I went and looked that up afterwards. Like that was it. And sure enough, like you only see the back of his head, and you know that's what does he really have to do? But again, those young kids, etc. You're like, that should have been. Although maybe once you make Enter the Void and somebody says, right, I want you to play the sweet girl, you're like, no.
Oh, interesting. The young Linda was in Doctor Sleep. She's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that. Yes, and J. Edgar playing Shirley Temple, actually, as it goes. Yeah, and the film Revenge, and she's in the new Ghostbusters movie. Well, there you go.
Yeah, she's in Lights Out. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize her. Oh, she's
good.
She's busy.
Yeah, she's doing all right, but that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
You know, people be successful. That's good, especially when they've got talent, because she was magnificent in this, and obviously they recognised that early on because they give her a lot of facial screen time, you know.
And Paz de la Huerta, definitely has a look.
Yeah, it's almost like I was trying to place her because she looks a bit like Linda Evangelista in some places, and that kind of has that, I'd say, a very European looking face, you know. But not like, has done a lot of work, but not stuff that do, because I think she's excellent in this. Like, she is basically the person that carries the movie in a lot of ways, because it is a bit her the whole time, and the reaction on her, even the scene where she tells Victor to go kill himself. Yeah, great scene where he tries to absolve himself. Like it is all on her, which is so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is basically her movie, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, she does. And there's a few scenes in the club when she's on the stage and the camera goes above. You know, I wonder how they did all those different angles and how they were able to make that work. Because you watch it, but when you really think, well, how did they do that?
Had to do that, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like that, this didn't win awards for cinematography, editing, whatever you want to talk about, on a massive scale. I get that you don't nominate this film for the Oscars because that's that's how it goes. Well, one, it costs a lot of money to get something nominated for the Oscars, which is probably another problem. But there's no way you can't tell me that any amount of films are better edited or shot than this, because it's an extraordinary technical achievement, never mind anything else.
Yeah, it is quite the film. So I guess, who would you recommend this to?
Oh, man. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if I could recommend this to anybody until somebody comes to me and says, I feel like I've seen everything. Films bore me. There's nothing interesting to see in films. They're all the same. And then you go, right, well, there's your next watching assignment. But I think even they might go, oh, that's just shock. That's just doing it for shock value. Yes, it is trying to shock you. There's no doubt about that. But it's also trying to do an awful lot more than that. It gets to ask questions and ask things that other methods of storytelling just don't do.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Who within our group? I mean, everybody should probably give it a go. Maybe that should be, we could have like a sweepstake. At what point do you think this person would make it? What person would this person make it? I think it's a hard film to recommend for me, especially because it's 2.5 hours long. That's the bit that I think anybody could get through, like 90 minutes of something like that pretty successfully, and then make a judgment call. But I think getting the 1.5 hours and realising there's still another hour to go is sometimes a bit much.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would not be fans of the long, drawn-out scenes of floating, and there's a lot of I don't say downtime. There's a lot of transitional, scene. We're going place to place, but I think that's part of the experience to see him floating and being kind of in this void.
Yeah. Should make some mention of the titling and the music.
Yeah.
Because they're quite an assault as well. Especially the strobing. I mean, Noe's well known for strobing and using that to really keep people, shocked and kind of visually uncomfortable, because that's exactly what he's going to do as soon as the movie starts. But even the different typography, I watched a feature on the typography at the start, which is all different, which kind of talks about, well, the extra was basically saying it kind of represents all the people that went into making this and all the people that there are in the world, that everybody is slightly different, and regardless of what you think and you're bringing to the film, that your individuality probably interprets how you'll see a lot of the film and all that kind of stuff, and everybody will be different and should be seen as different. And I think that, again, those things that are not obvious on first time watch or otherwise, but I think are an incredibly important part of the process of a movie like this.
Yeah, very thought out. Lots of detail. Yeah,
no accidents. Like I often say that about all filmmaking. If you think, I always say to people when they're saying, how do you make a start on looking for more movies, is, well, if you think that what's the easiest thing for any person to do at any given time, why would you change that if they do that? So, like, you just plonk a camera in front of two actors and get them to act without a cut. Or get them to act without a cut. That's how you make films. But if somebody edits or cuts or moves the camera or does it from one side of the face to the other side, why would you do that? Because that's far harder to do, and you would only do it by design. And as soon as that idea gets into your head, and again about the titling and the strobing, and right, why would he be strobing? People are like, oh, I hate that bit, right? But why would he be doing it? Like, because it's more effort and more work. And it's not just because it looks cool. There's something else going on there. Same with a different typography. Why? Because again, more effort, more work, more money.
Yeah. That's interesting about the title. I didn't notice that really until you. I just was scrolling through it as you mentioned that. But yeah, it is different. The different fonts and colors and appearance. Interesting.
Very European dance theme and music as well. Love it.
So, the title, what does it mean to you, Into the Void?
Well, it obviously has multi-layered meanings throughout the whole film, in terms of, like, they literally put the camera into the voids, like I said, the bullet hole, which is pouring the ashes down the sink, the baby being discarded, all of that kind of stuff. But for me, it's very much about entering a state of mind for the start of the movie. You're gonna sit down. We want you to enter the void. Like the club's called the Void, right? We're gonna go out for the night to the void. You're gonna get an experience in the void here somewhere that is outside of the norm. It's a bit like saying into the haunted mansion or the ghost house or something like that. Like, you're gonna go from the reality into something that's an unreality of some sort, and then when you come out the far end, you probably or hope to be a bit changed coming at the back of it. What about yourself?
Like you said, I think there's multiple meanings to it. I think part of it is like Oscar is entering the void, where he's in this, kind of limbo. It could also be a sexual thing where you're entering the void. Like you mentioned, the club is called Into the Void. It could also be a play on, like, Linda and Oscar's relationship, the family unit, that they are trying to fill a void within themselves. Linda's trying to fill a void, and Oscar's trying to fill a void. Oscar fills a void at the end because he comes back. I'm assuming so anyway. So it could also be that everyone has emptiness that they're trying to fill. They're trying to fill the void. All of them are looking for something looking for meaning, looking for purpose, looking for, everyone is. So I don't know. There's a lot of different interpretations. I don't think anyone's wrong. You just lots of different ways you can interpret it.
And I think that's, for me, that's the entire beauty of this film, is that all opinions are valid. Like, probably more so than any other movie. It is very much about what it makes you think about. And if it made you think it, then that was valid, because it doesn't draw clear parallels for you about any of it. Mm-hmm. Whether you judge everybody and think they're all terrible people and they all deserve to die anyway. I mean, again, I can see that point of view and say that it's valid. But yeah, fascinating movie.
It is, definitely. Yeah, lots of different meanings, and yeah. Yeah.
It lasted longer than 10 minutes, Steve. Yeah. We're kind of like, it is one of those things we could end up to be talking for a long while about, or it's like, well, it's all on the screen. You just have to go watch it and then see what you think of it. But no, that was an interesting conversation. Made me think a lot more about the film.
Yeah.
Not maybe make me want to go and watch it right away. I don't think I'm quite ready for that, but sit nicely on the shelf.
Yeah, I think this is one of my top 20, top 25, I would say.
Right.
But it's not one that I would watch very often.
Yeah.
It's one that I really appreciate. I really like it. It's really thought-provoking, but you have to be in the right place. You have to be kind of in the mood. But it's not one that you can watch over and over again. You kind of have to be in the right place for it.
Yeah. That's an interesting question about my top 25 movies of all time. How many of them are movies that I would watch again and again and again? I'd say actually out of that list, very small amount, because it's the films that do something else that are powerful enough that you can't sit and watch them every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I think those are the ones that kind of resonate and stick with you and keep you years later. Like Martyrs. I think about. I don't want to watch it again, but I think about it all the time.
Yeah, it's in there. Once it was put in there, it just keeps running around your head. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are films where it makes a really big impact.
Yeah.
But you just aren't in a hurry to watch it again, just because of that, because it is so powerful.
Yeah. And it's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy to watch films like that, because you have to invest the time and energy and thought into doing it. So it creates that active watching experience that is very different from a Marvel movie or otherwise,
Yeah. And sometimes it's good to have a comfort watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
just popcorn.
You can't watch Into the Void 7 days a week. In fact, if you do, I'm not sure how stable your life has been for the past while. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit concerned. Yeah, a little bit worried.
Indeed.
What are you doing? But, well, awesome. Yeah, it was fun. I thought this is either going to be 10, 15 minutes or be an hour plus. So
we did it. We did it, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you can think of on this one?
No. Just go watch more Gaspar Noé. We're gonna have Irreversible coming up if anybody wants to join us for that. I have told you before, I have really no great desire to watch Irreversible again anytime soon. But for you, Steve, I'll step up.
You can skip that scene. Yeah, I probably will. I don't know if I'll. It's yeah. We'll get into it, but yeah, it's definitely a different feel. Where this film feels very, kind of you're floating, I guess. You're floating from place to place.
It's ethereal. Yeah.
That one is very intense from the very start. It is nonstop. Well, I guess towards the end, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, different experience for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
So in the meantime, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me in the PageTune forums. You can find us on our other podcast endeavours like Speculative Speculations, where we talk about speculative fiction, mostly sci-fi. We're talking about the Southern Reach trilogy of books at the moment, which are just fantastic. Or you can find me on my YouTube channel at Chris Moen, just my name.
Okay. I'll have all the links down below, and definitely check us out and come by the website, come by the forum, say hello. Come and tell us how wrong we are about everything we just said.
For sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, cool. So we'll see everyone very soon.